This is Peak Productivity, the podcast for Asana lovers and productivity nerds. Today, with Bastien, we talk about the latest features on Asana. And we will also discuss the outcomes, the positive and the negatives in organization when you deploy Asana. Less anxiety, less meetings, less emails. Welcome to Peak Productivity. 3, 2, 1, we are on air. Episode number 14, Peak Productivity with us. One more week. Bastien Siebman, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Today I have a few news to share about new Asana features, and I'm intrigued about your thoughts about these new features. The first one is the ability to duplicate sections. Finally, I'm sure that those that use Asana have been in the position that they want to clone a section in a project, and there was no chance to do that until now. Do you like the new duplicate section feature? What are the potential use cases for that?
Yeah, I think the existing workaround was pretty awkward because you had to multi-home those tasks in a project and then duplicate the project and remove that project. It was a mess. So I think it's a very welcomed feature. I was also very surprised because they went above and beyond. When you duplicate the section, you can choose what you want to duplicate, exactly which fields. So it really goes beyond what I expected. So I think it's great. The only problem would be people using that a bit too much and potentially notifying too many people. That could be the problem. But yeah, we'll see. The same thing applies to the multi-select, the bulk edit. Used to be 50. Now soon you're going to be able to do way more than this, but potentially you're going to notify a shit ton of time people.
Yeah.
And there's no way to clean things up except clicking, and clicking. But yeah, it goes in the right direction as always.
Yeah, this episode is being recorded on March 13th, so probably you're listening at a later date. This is a feature that has been rolling out in the past days. I'm not sure if 100% of the users have the ability to duplicate sections. In fact,
I'll tell you, actually, I have some notes about
yeah,
this. I have a
last I
secret
think it was
roadmap project.
yeah, Bastian has like the Vatican archives
It's an A/B test
secret
in
key.
progress, actually. A/B test supposed to run. Full rollout was last month, so it's fully rolled out, but it's an A/B test, so potentially some people do not have this yet.
It might even go be rolled back and be removed
It might.
from some spaces. Yeah, cool. I think it was like 10 days or 2 weeks ago that I was talking to some customers, and they didn't have the ability to applicate sections. So, well, we'll see. My first impression is I like it. We will see how it goes. It's very similar for those that haven't tried it. It's very similar to the Duplicate project, that you have the ability to check several boxes like clone the assignees, due dates, collaborators, and so on. So as Bastien said, you will trigger so many notifications if the clone section has a lot of information. So beware of that. Another feature is the ability to apply a bundle to streamline processes across all projects within a portfolio.
Yes, finally. Finally, to me, that was the main use case for bundles, the ability to tie a bundle to a portfolio. It's finally coming. Bundles, I think it's a mix of, this is very exciting, but also a bit hard to use on a daily basis. And if you use bundles, especially on existing projects, that could be very awkward because you might end up with duplicate sections, duplicate fields. It doesn't work really well with existing projects, but it does work pretty well with new projects. One advice that I usually share is, if you have enterprise, because this is an enterprise feature, if you have enterprise
Correct.
and you're not sure you're going to need bundles, add one bundle to your template anyway, because you never know when you're going to need them. It doesn't cost much to have like an empty bundle tied to a template. or tied to a portfolio, and then later on you can decide what you put within. But just like goals, it really requires to test them and do some tests and look around. I think what's a bit surprising as well is that the entire interface to manage bundles, it looks a bit off. It doesn't look exactly like the rest of Asana. And based on discussions I had with people, I think the buttons do not appear exactly at the same location they usually do. So it feels like maybe that's the next version of Asana, but it hasn't been implemented everywhere. So it feels a bit off and it's a bit awkward sometimes, but it's a right step it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I call this type of features like a insurance feature, like your car insurance. It's something that you don't feel its
Exactly.
value until
Yep.
you need it.
Yep.
Probably many people have heard about bundles and they don't perceive the value that they have. But when you have to propagate a lot of information to many projects, then bundles is amazing. And then you really perceive the value. It's like when you have an accident that it's better that you have a good car insurance. Cool. Also, it's not official, but it's coming soon, and it has been released in an Asana Ambassadors newsletter. The ability to update portfolio and goal status with the help of Asana Intelligence. How do you feel about using these Asana Intelligence features, generating task summaries or reports?
To be honest, I'm a bit afraid of people not putting in the work anymore and just generating something without reworking that status update. And if that happens, we're going to end up with a status update that nobody reads because everybody knows it was auto-generated, and sometimes it's not super clear. I feel like sometimes there's a lot of duplication of information within those updates, and they could be cleaned up a little bit. That being said, Richard, a friend of us, tested it recently, and he generated one on a project he was involved in, and that helped him uncover some of the things that happened he hasn't known about because he wasn't involved on those tasks. So the status update revealed some of the things he was not able to see. So that could be quite useful. So I think it's really a tool. It's like Asana's telling us AI is really here to join the team. It doesn't replace anyone. It doesn't replace anything. It's helping you generate something that you have to rework. And that's really important. So I'm just a bit afraid that people will not do the rework piece. So I guess time will tell.
Yeah, one of the additional or collateral features that I saw in a customer space is that it has the ability to generate project status and send it automatically via email. That it's something
Yes.
that when you're using Asana on a daily basis, maybe you don't value, but for those organizations that start using Asana, they rely very much on the email messages. So having the ability to turn on this feature that the project generates the status update and sends the weekly email with that status, it might be positive. Definitely, when organizations are used to work with Asana, they visit Asana several times during the day. Having the information on their email inbox, is not that important. But for organizations that are joining Asana, it might be a good feature. Another improvement, let's call it that way, for the advanced formula fields is the ability to use the today data. So you can make calculations depending on today's date. I had a few requests that involved this feature, so uh, some clients will be very happy that now they can have these new formula fields making calculations depending on today. I don't know if you feel the same on your side.
We used it right away. We had
Okay.
again an awkward workaround involving rules and date field and something that didn't work quite well. So we used it right away, and I think it's pretty useful. It's always surprising that those things take a long time to be released. But I'm the first one to also defend the product team because they have so much to deal with. But that's a very nice addition.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. This last weekend, I was playing a little bit with Notion, and when it comes to formulas, it's impressive. Probably too much because it's like you have a huge tutorial to understand how
You
formula
need a
properties
PhD
work.
to do formulas in Notion.
Yeah, I think so. You must be like a rocket scientist to play with formula properties. And I think that Asana is going. All these products are somehow merging in terms of features. So yeah, but I think that definitely having this today input will help to improve the formulas on Asana. Cool. Any other feature? These are the ones that were listed on the ambassadors newsletter. As we said in a previous episode, we recommend you to visit the forum. We recommend you to join the ambassadors program. It helps you learn more about Asana, learn
Yeah, so
how
actually,
to.
I'm looking at my notes. I haven't prepared anything. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Something that was released was the new type of field, which is the ID field. So one field that automatically increases by one for each task. So you basically have a unique ID you can use. That's pretty sweet. A lot of people have been asking for this.
Yeah.
There are a few limitations at the moment, like always, but it's definitely something that's interesting. Um,
Especially those
also,
that come from Jira. Those
yeah,
that come
yeah,
from Jira that are
exactly.
used to the ID. Now, this ID field helps like to add like if it was a car number plate to the task. So it's easy to refer to a task using this ID instead of using the URL ID that it's huge.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, the ability to share a project with the entire org. This is something that
Yeah.
did not exist earlier. That was released last month. That could be pretty useful. That can't happen within a private team, though. So that limits the use case a little bit, but it's pretty useful to be able to share something with everybody. We also have in the rule editor, we have new conditions on date fields and start date. That's always useful. If you do very complex workflows like us, you usually stumble upon those limitations often. So that's something that's great. And a very big one that was released is the capacity plan. So if you are with
Yeah. Yeah.
enterprise, you have now the ability to build a capacity planning. So basically, just to describe the feature, for each person that you decide, you can add a project, and for each project, you can tell how busy they're going to be with that project overall over a period of time. For example, that person will be 50% of their time on this project, and then 1 quarter on this one, 1 quarter on this one. And you can either use a percentage or use an actual number of hours. So it's a pretty great tool to use in addition to the workload to do some forecast and staffing meetings, basically.
Yeah. Would you agree that this capacity plan is more high level than the workload?
Yes. Yeah,
It's
definitely, because you only look at a project as a whole. You never look at tasks specifically. So for a project, you might say that David's going to work 100 hours on this project and I will work 50 hours on this project. Very, very high level. When we had that need, we were usually creating tasks and using workload or timeline to try to see what's happening. But yeah, it's definitely a new tool in the toolbox that we have.
and another tool that supports the trend that Asana is leaning more to corporate organizations, teams, so bigger
Definitely.
teams, HR people, PMOs, PM, people that need to manage their resources and that workload was not enough. And now they have this capacity plan. Cool. Today I wanted to talk about the outcomes of using Asana. We've mentioned a lot of features and everything that it involves using Asana, but probably we haven't talked about the outcomes. What are the biggest impacts of an organization that is using Asana? Because probably when it comes to features, it's I mean it's not what's the biggest concern for an organization that it's planning to use a project management software or a work management software like Asana. On my side and from my experience, the best outcomes are reduce anxiety. Usually, especially business leaders don't know the status of the projects, who is doing what, in which stage is each project. So this produces a lot of anxiety in the team leadership and the whole organization. Would you agree on that? That it's in terms of reducing anxiety, uh, a product like Asana helps.
Yeah, I actually wrote down clarity, so I wanted to cover this. But yeah, it brings clarity, and if you do it right, then everybody can go and fetch information they need instead of asking you to give them that information. So basically, usually the example we use is the Friday afternoon PowerPoint slide deck you used to put together for the leadership team becomes simply a status update on the project, and that gets pushed to them, and they can look at the portfolio. You can even do that on a Thursday if you want to. So you go from people asking you for stuff to people actually going in and getting that information. I actually talked with the client last week, and they think that's going to be the biggest struggle they're going to have, because they have that culture of please give me that number
Mhm.
instead of go and look for yourself.
Push or
So
pull
yeah, exactly. So
communication.
yeah, to them that's going to be the biggest struggle they're going to have. Um, but yeah, we see more clarity definitely, and you can look at what someone's doing, not to spy on them, but just to understand their workload, what they're working on, delegate some of the work they have, or give them more work if you have too much yourself. So also brings flexibility.
What's your answer when a team says, "Will Asana make me do extra work? So on top of my 8 hours of super busy work, now I have to allocate like half an hour or additional hour to write down all the task or complete task or report."
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to think this way, because that work about work, you were already doing that, but you were not tracking it properly. So it was just in your head, and you were probably overwhelmed most of the time. And taking time to define something properly also gives you the opportunity to delegate that thing easily, or even put that thing aside and work on it later, a few weeks later, and knowing exactly what you have to do. So I do agree there's a lot of clicking and moving around, but I think it's for the best, because that really gives you the ability to first know what you should be focusing on. I spend a fair chunk of my day cleaning things up, but I also know exactly what I'm supposed to do. So I'm very clear. I have some clarity, which you did not have before if you just had like a massive list of things to do in your head.
I agree. I agree. Usually, people don't realize this work about work layer that they assume it's normal, and probably the the message is that you will replace this layer for a thinner layer using a tool like Asana. Additional benefits or outcomes of using Asana:
Yeah,
reducing internal communication, maybe less internal emails, less meetings.
definitely less emails, but I think it's a difficult argument, because those emails become comments on tasks, and I do believe that you probably end up with more comments than you had emails. But those comments, they are about something that is a small scope, so it's easier to deal with a comment on a single task rather than an email with everybody in CC. So I do think you're going to have way more messages to deal with, but they are also easier to deal with. So I don't always use that argument. Less
Ha- ha-
meetings might be hard as well, because you might need some meetings to adjust, but those meetings will be more efficient for sure.
cool. Have you faced the situation where a team that they are working under the same roof in the same office it becomes somehow complicated, that because they have a lot of verbal communication, and then you have to, let's say, convince them that some of this, not all, but some of this verbal communication has to go through Asana. Have you faced this situation? Isn't it easier? Let me put it the other way around. Is it easier to deploy Asana in a full remote team than a team that works the same workspace?
Yeah, I think it's definitely easier because it's a small step for them to take. Going from all verbal to all digital is a biggest step to take, definitely. Um, I think what I usually tell people is that you're not going to reduce the amount of discussions you have face to face, but those discussions will be on the right things. It will not be on what's the status of the project. It will be on how can we make sure that this project goes back on track. So you will still have meetings with the team, but that meeting will be about the project that are off track rather than let's go through all the project and talk about what has been done. And it doesn't have to replace all meetings and all verbal communication. You just repurpose them to work on things that have more sense.
Yeah, and it goes back to that magic word, clarity. You made a great choice adding clarity to your brand, because
Yeah, actually, that was a constraint because the ido.com domain was not available. I think it cost like $50K, so we had to add some words in the domain name.
but it's a great choice because, as you said, some discussions that were pointing fingers, blaming other colleagues. Now you have the clarity in the task. You can see who changed the due date, or who attached the file, or who contact the customer. So it's good. Another common question: what's the
Actually, do have other
for?
benefits if you want to finish the benefits.
Yeah, sure,
Can
of
you put the
course.
question aside?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. I actually wrote them down as you started the conversation. I think the flexibility one is definitely a good one, especially when offboarding someone, someone leaves the company, or onboarding someone. There's really a before and after Asana when it comes to onboarding and offboarding. Changes everything. I think also when you start using Asana and you start especially creating templates, it forces you to look at your workflows in the eyes and realize how complex they have become. So it's really a good opportunity to simplify everything and improve those processes. Things you haven't touched in years, they became some kind of a Frankenstein kind of process involving different people. You can finally have the opportunity to simplify them down. And the last benefit I see is around trust. Um, when deploying Asana, you need to have trust in the team because you're not going to be able to um, look at everything anymore, and you have to trust people to do their work. But I think you need trust, but also Asana is going to enforce that trust even more because you realize that people actually manage to do their work properly, and that trust is going to grow bigger than it was before. So trust would be also, I think, a good benefit from a tool like Asana.
Yeah, this belongs to what in previous episodes we called the conversation trademark, that you have with the customer, that it's planning to deploy Asana, but they need be sure that they will trust their team, because Asana is super flexible. So you
Yeah, and
need
I always
this
tell
trust.
them if there's no trust and transparency, you can always try and go against the tool, but you're going to hit roadblocks all the way. Every single feature is designed around openness and transparency. It's getting different. It's changing a bit, but every time people want to lock things down, hide project, reduce visibility, they keep on hitting roadblocks. So make sure that Asana is the right tool for you, especially if you don't agree that much with trust and transparency.
Totally agree. The question that
Yeah.
it's um, what's where are the boundaries or the frontier when you have to create a task and when it's not necessary to create a task? I have. I'll start with my theory or my suggestion. I always say if the task doesn't need to leave a trace behind, if it doesn't imply additional people, it's only yourself that are that, and it takes less than 3 minutes to do it, it's not necessary to generate a task. If any of these three elements, the answer is yes, you need to leave a trace behind, or it involves more than one person, or it takes longer than 3 minutes, then create a task and leave it on Asana for the record. Do you have a similar theory, or it's each business, each organization is different?
Yeah, I think I would have a broader definition. My definition would be you always need a task unless it can be done right away. But it's kind of the same thing as you. If even if you have to, even if you can do it right away very quickly, sometimes you just want to make sure that people can find that task later, and you need to find traces. So actually, I do agree with you. Um, but I think almost everything needs to be a task, even if it's small. And very often, I create a task just for myself because you never know if you get a call right in the middle of doing the task, you might forgot what you were supposed to do. So I usually create tasks for almost everything.
Cool. And any tip for creating the task, like any tip for the title or the description, or when to add collaborators?
I usually create them very, very quickly in my task view. And then when I have a chance, I clean that up, change the title, add the right people, add the right project. But my task is usually a list of many things I jot down very quickly, and then I clean up. And sometimes I complete the task without changing anything because that was very small. But at least I documented what I had to do. And I'm trying to get better at naming the task and give as much detail as I can, because sometimes I think about something and 1 hour later I don't remember exactly the details. So I just need to get better at really writing even complete sentences in the task name. That's fine, at least until you clean that up and put that in a clean project.
Do you use the mobile app to dictate tasks?
Yeah, sometimes I do when I'm driving. Don't tell my colleague Arthur, he hates this, but sometimes I do. When I think about something, I dictate. And even if Asana doesn't always understand, there's always the audio recording you can listen to. So yeah, that happens.
And curiosity. You, like me, use different languages. You
Mhm.
mix probably French and English. It's always English on Asana, or you have there a similar mix?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. The team now has people that don't speak French, so we try to have as much as we can in English. I usually think in English, so it's usually in English, but some stuff might end up being in French. There's an awkward mix of both in the space that we have.
Yeah, cool. Good also to know that your team is growing. You now have additional consultants in the US, so congratulations.
Yeah, it's kind of a
Uh,
challenge actually, because you end
yeah,
up with and it's funny because you experience what your clients have been experiencing: a growing team, people in different time zones. You barely have time to see each other in meetings, so you have to work asynchronously. The processes that you thought were okay, they're actually not that okay when you onboard three people at the same time. So you end up improving everything, and that has been a very interesting challenge that forced us to really push the boundaries of Asana and really improve everything. And again, experience what our clients have been experiencing for months.
great. So we reached the end of this 14th Peak Productivity episode. As always, a huge pleasure for our audience. If you want to know more about Asana, if you want to deploy Asana in your organization, you have our URLs. No, you will find no better consultant in France and French-speaking countries, and now also in the US and English-speaking countries than I do Clarity. And Bastien, see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.